Hi everyone, mentioned this bread recipe yesterday, my Friday weekly update. I found this on a website or a YouTube channel, sorry, called Deirdre's Kitchen. It's also on Keto Fitness Club's website called Mega Bread. It is the best bread recipe that I've tried. So I'm going to go through how to make it, and I will list all the ingredients below. I'll put some links into where I've got some of them because they're not all easy to find. So first of all, in here in the bowl I have what's called, I don't know whether you can see that, Vital Wheat gluten flour. It's not flour, it's just the gluten extracted from the flour, and that's what basically gives the, that holds all the bread together. It's very low in carbohydrates, but it's hard to get hold of, so I've got that off the internet. So the quantities for that, now if it looks more than what I'm saying, it's because I'm doubling it. I'm going to try and do a loaf and try and make some bread rolls as well. So the quantity for the Vital Wheat gluten is 1 1/4 cups, or if you prefer grams, 190 grams of that. First thing I'm going to do is I've got some lukewarm water, which is 240 mils, and lukewarm, it means finger warm. Okay, now I do have some dried yeast. It's 1 sachet, I'm going to put 2 in. You don't need to activate dried yeast, but I like to activate it just in case it's gone off. If you've not stored it at the right temperature, it may no longer be live. So, and the way you activate it is you put it in water that's at finger temperature and give it a mix up. So because I'm doubling, there's 2 sachets of that going in there. And to activate it, I'm going to put some honey in. Now I know honey isn't keto, but what happens is the honey basically gets discounted because the yeast eat all the honey. So there's actually no honey left in the bread. They'll eat all the sugar. So there's 2 tablespoons of honey. So the yeast, if you're weighing it, it's 7 grams, but if you buy it in sachets, it's 1 sachet. Now I'm putting 2 tablespoons of honey in here, but for one single recipe it's just 1 tablespoon of honey. Stir that in, and if you do this first, you can see if it's activated by the time you finish mixing all your dry ingredients. So give it a good mix in, and I'm just going to leave that now, and you'll very soon see if it starts frothing up on the top, you know your yeast is okay. It's still live, which is what you want for your bread to rise. Just look a bit on my spatula. Get in there. Doesn't want to go. Go on, in you go. So that's my yeast. I'll just leave that to one side. So dry ingredients, I'm going to mix all the dry ingredients together. So there is 1 1/4 cups of Vital Wheat gluten. To that we're going to add 1/2 cup of oat fibre. Now oat fibre is just fibre. It's very fine. It's like icing sugar. It's so fine, like talcum powder. You've just got to be careful with it. So this is the oat fibre. That's focused, I'm not sure. Again, I got that off Amazon. It's not an easy thing to buy, and it is literally, there's no carbs in it because all the carbohydrates are fibre and they just go through, straight through. So 1/2 cup of oat fibre, just give those a mix together. 2/3 of a cup of the golden milled linseed. I'll just put that in. Now this is easy to get hold of. This is from Aldi. Golden milled linseed. It's about £1.79 a packet. It's not very expensive. Unfortunately, the oat fibre and the Vital Wheat gluten are a little bit more expensive than that. And then into that, we're going to mix a teaspoon of pink Himalayan sea salt. and give that a stir. And without sweetener, it can be a little bit bitter. So we're going to put some sweetener in, but we're not going to put any of the nasties in. So the sweetener I use is really, really good sweetener. It's called erythritol or erythritol. And on the packet, I don't know whether you can see this or not, but basically it tastes just like sugar. It bakes like sugar. It's got 0 calories. It's tooth friendly, diabetic friendly, it's vegan, gluten free, and it has no bitter aftertaste, and I can guarantee that because I can't stand stevia. I think it's got an awful, awful taste. And it's 100% natural. So again, that's off Amazon. And this is what it looks like. It looks like icing sugar, can you see? It's like powdered sugar. And it tastes very, very sweet. It's lovely. It's even got a bit of a caramelly taste. It's nice to make a buttercream with. If you just fancy something a bit sweet, the erythritol. So there's 2 tablespoons of powdered erythritol. No, ignore me. 4 tablespoons of powdered erythritol, sorry. So 4 tablespoons of erythritol to sweeten the bread. I don't want to waste any. Let's get those little bits in there. Then another thing that will hold it all together is xanthan gum. And xanthan gum is, it just combines everything, but it does have a habit of clumping, so you've just got to be careful to mix it in really, really well. So that's xanthan gum. I got that from Tesco, so that's quite easy to get hold of. And it's half a teaspoon of xanthan gum. I'll sprinkle that on. And then what we're going to do is just combine all the dry ingredients so that they're really well mixed in. In fact, if I can find it, I'll just use a whisk. Make sure we've got no lumps in there from the xylitol. So that's all the dry ingredients all mixed in. There's a few little lumps from the erythritol. Just want to get those out. So put them to one side, and then we're just going to mix all the wet ingredients. Let's clean up as we go. So the wet ingredients, can you see the top of this now? I don't know whether you can see that. It's all frothing up. It's got a line of froth around it, so I know the yeast is active, which is great. 2 eggs and 1 tablespoon, and what I've done is I beat the eggs up. So 2 eggs beaten, sorry, and 2 tablespoons of butter. And the butter's melted, and I'm just going to combine it into the eggs. I'm going to put a little bit more butter in there because I've got a feeling I haven't doubled the butter. So just going to eyeball another 2 tablespoons, tiny bit more, and melt that in the microwave. So combine 2 tablespoons of butter with 2 eggs. And then that's going to go into the dry ingredients. Just bear with me. Another 2 tablespoons. I definitely didn't put 4 in before. So just whisk those up. And then we're going to put all the wet ingredients straight into the dry. It's as easy as that. Mix your dry ingredients, mix your wet ingredients, and then combine the 2. Let's get rid of that now. So eggs going in. Now the best way to make this is in a bread machine, and all you do, put your wet ingredients in first and then your dry ingredients. You make a well in the middle and you add your yeast. So yeast going in, and then it needs a really good stir. If you can do this in a machine, if you've got a machine with a dough hook, it's a lot easier. And what you do is you put it in the machine with a dough hook on and you mix it for 5 to 7 minutes. I got rid of all my contraptions ages ago because I don't have a lot of storage space, and I find no matter what a machine does, you can do the same thing by hand. It just takes a little bit more mixing. So I just got to combine them all, and what will happen is the gluten will go more, the more you mix it, the more elastic the gluten goes. So although it's sloppy at the moment, if I keep mixing it and keep mixing it, it will not be sloppy in a little while. So mix, mix, mix until all the ingredients are very well combined, and then it's a case of kneading. See how it's going thicker now, much thicker. From a sloppy mess to a much, much thicker dough. And just mix until you actually get a dough-like consistency. I'm making a bit of a mess here. So now everything is combined. All I'm going to do now is do what a dough hook would do, which is fold and twist it, fold and twist it. And I'm going to have to knead this for about 10 minutes by hand. Again, if you've got a machine, you can do it in about 5 to 7 minutes. But because I'm not doing it as fast as a machine, I'm going to knead it by hand for about 10 minutes. So I'll come back in 10 minutes. Okay, so I finished kneading. That was a bit of a workout. It's so elastic and so tough. You can see the gluten's really doing its job. So I'm going to eyeball this, and I'm going to cut it in half. Half is going in a loaf tin, and the other half I'm going to try making some rolls so that we can have things like burgers on buns. So I'm just going to shape it. Should have wet my hands. It's a lot easier when your hands are wet. Into the shape of a loaf. In fact, I will wet my hands. I'm going to shape it into a loaf. There you go, that's the loaf. And then the rest of the dough, I'm going to make some rolls. So let's eyeball this again. I think we'll do it into 8. Or maybe not 8, maybe just a few. The next thing we're going to do is these are going to prove. So to make a nice roll, you want to tuck it all under so you don't get splits and lumps and bumps really. Tuck it all in like that. Underneath. That might be a very big roll when it's proved. I'm just doing 6. They're not very evenly sized, but never mind. You can, and the best way to do it would be to weigh your dough and then actually weigh each one so they're all uniform. But this is just an experiment really for these rolls to see if they turn out. Tuck it in, tuck it in, tuck it in. There we go. So I've got 6 rolls and a loaf. Now what I'm going to do is they've now got to prove. So we're going to let them rise To do that, put them somewhere warm and cover them. I'm going to put them in my oven on the lowest setting with a bowl of boiling water, so there's a bit of steam in there, and with the door open on the oven, and I'm going to leave them now to proof for 90 minutes. So we'll come back in 90 minutes and see how we've gone on. Okay guys, I've finished proofing the bread. Look at how much that has risen. That is absolutely huge. I think I know why Keto Fitness call it mega bread. The rolls are huge as well. I mean, I think definitely could have made a lot more than that. The bread, when it's done, cut it into 16 slices, and each slice is 2 net carbs. So these are going to be double because I've done half, so there'll be even more than that, but I would say make 8 rolls and they'd be 4 net carbs each. So now the next step is to cook them in the oven for 25 to 30 minutes. It depends on your own oven, at 190 degrees Celsius, and I'll show you what they look like when it's done. So here's the bread that I made last night. I'm just about to slice it up. It's just made an absolutely huge loaf, sorry. These are the rolls, and as you can see, they're very much like a roll. They're very, very big, those. I think I'd make them into 8 if I did them again. This is a slice of the bread, and as you can see, it's really, really spongy. It's just like bread. It smells like bread. Paul came in the kitchen last night. He said, "Oh, it smells lovely in here, like somebody's making bread," which is exactly what I was doing. It's got a lovely crust on it. It toasts really nice, and this will slice into 16 slices. Each slice is 4 grams of total carbs, 2 grams of net carbs, and 2 grams of fibre. So only 2 grams of carbs. You can have a sandwich for 4 grams. It's the best recipe I've found. It's the most bread-like substitute I've found, and I'd highly recommend it, and it makes a huge loaf. So you slice that up, it will last you a whole week. So yeah, I'd highly recommend that. I'll put the recipe in the description below, just so you've got the quantities rather than having to watch the whole thing. But it's so easy to make. Mix wet, mix dry, proof and bake. It's as simple as that. And I'll put links to all the ingredients down in the description below. Okay, enjoy.